Hey guys, I'm Jackie Brubaker. I'm an author, producer, 2-time Emmy Award winner, and host of That Girl the Podcast. Each week, I bring on inspiring people and stories to help you become that girl or that guy in your life. That Girl the Podcast is based on the romantic comedy That Girl a Novel, which is now available as a podcast to listen to. Listen to each chapter about finding yourself and adulting in LA. Find That Girl a Novel everywhere you listen to your podcasts. You can also find it on Amazon to buy the Kindle or paperback of. For more, find us at thatgirlthepodcast.com and follow us on Instagram at thatgirlthepodcast and our Patreon page. Welcome, Sara Totten, back to That Girl the Podcast. Lovely to see you, and I love the shirt you're wearing. This is very cute.
Thank you.
Very bohemian. Today we are going to talk about closure.
Yes.
And it's a very important topic. People can go their whole lives without feeling closure. And I don't think closure is necessarily always a thing that you need to get like from someone, but it can be, and it can be very important. But it is something that you always need to do within yourself, at least.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, let's talk about closure in your perspective. Like, what are your thoughts about closure? We'll just start there.
I mean, basically kind of just mirroring what you said. I think it's such an important thing to do, whether it's to do with dating or anything really, I think, in your life. I think it's something that everyone needs to go through to be able to kind of move on and move forward. But I think kind of taking it back to dating and relationships, I think it's such an important thing because you want to be able to, like I said, move on, meet somebody else. You want to be able to be happy in yourself. And sometimes until you get closure, you just feel very sort of in the middle, like a sort of limbo situation. And I just think it's good, not only I think for like your mental health, but like your physical well-being and just like feeling good for yourself to be able to move forward in a positive way.
Absolutely. I think the thing that everyone struggles with is, let's just talk about romantic relationships, because it really is interchangeable with just life events, right? Where you're just heartbroken over something or someone, and you just feel like you can't get over them and you're just stuck. Maybe you've, again, just using like a romantic relationship, perhaps you've broken up and it wasn't your choice and it came out of nowhere to you.
Yeah.
That is so hard too, when you are just
oh my God,
punched.
Impossible. Yeah, it's so hard.
Oh my God, I thought we were good. Why didn't you say anything? And that's on the other person, right? Like, clearly,
absolutely, yeah.
Right, like clearly communicate. I can't speak. I'm tired. Clearly communication is not working and that person is not doing their part, which I think is very difficult too if you're the partner who gets broken up with, because you're like,
absolutely,
we could have worked on this, so that can keep you hung up on that person. Like,
and not being given the chance, I think, as well, to try and do what you can to make it work, or even have your say, I think is sometimes really hard.
Yes, definitely having your say, because now it's over technically. And you're just like, but we could have done this and I could have been this. And why didn't you give me a chance to try? And, I think in those circumstances too, it's really important to, as heartbreaking and as shocking as it is, to really see what this person is doing and where they're putting you at in the level of importance in their life. Because if they haven't given you a chance to work on things within yourself, within the relationship, to even try, like giving you a chance to speak your truth, that person really didn't care about your truth. They didn't really care. It's,
I think, a really hard realization as well, to know that that's the person that you've been with. And I think with things like that too, it can also trigger trust issues, because you're going to move forward potentially into a new relationship and you're going to think, right, things are going really, really well. But because of perhaps how it's ended previously with you being broken up with and you not thinking there was any issues, you're always going to have that kind of like niggle in the back of your mind being like, oh, well, is this, am I thinking the right thing? Like, is it going as good as I think it is? Do they like me as much as I like them? And it's little things like that, which I think can really spiral, which you kind of need to deal with amongst sort of the other things you need to do to get closure before you move on to somebody else.
Absolutely. And that's really difficult because, you may have been given this person goals and they're just like all kinds of messed up and all kinds of childhood wounds and old wounds that they've never even looked at or wanted to heal. Yeah. And you're like, yeah, but I was literally doing everything right. I was coming with an honest, heart. I was ready for the commitment and I was doing all the things. And then you were just too immature. Now, I will say that if you are that person who is like doing everything right, there may be some wounds that you need to fix because you chose someone like that. And, maybe they weren't like that at first. And then again, the sucker punch comes and you're like, oh, did you have crazy wounds that you just weren't showing me at all? So again, I don't want to like blame the partner who's getting broken up with because sometimes it has nothing to do with you. And that's important to remember too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think one of the first stages I think you need to go through in order to start the process of closure is I think you almost have to evaluate the relationship and kind of go through what has actually happened and process what's happened for you then to be able to kind of make sense of everything. So I think once you go through, and to be honest, I think, I'm sure you're aware of it. I certainly am, where in relationships in the past, there's been issues, but you've very much just been like, oh no, I'm sure it's fine. You've ignored it. Like the red flags have been there, but you've just been like, oh, what's that? Like, no, I'm sure it's fine.
Or you say it's when compassionate or patient or understanding.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like we've all been there. So I think it's important to kind of revisit those and actually and I think you can then make sense of it and see actually the timeline of maybe things weren't as good as you thought they were. And, I think everyone is very good at kind of putting on their rose tinted specs and, thinking everything's great when sometimes when you look a little bit deeper and sort of on another level, it's actually not.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest, that's also part of the heartbreak and part of the closure is what you just said. Like you suddenly start seeing how things weren't actually adding up and you were overcompensating to make things work, even in the smallest of ways. Like maybe you were the one who was always reaching out, you were just giving more and
constantly making the effort.
Right. And they were receiving it quite well, but like they were never pursuing you equally. And, so like you're having a relationship, but it's only because this other person's like, hey, okay, cool. Like I'll see you. Or
this works for me. Yeah.
Right. Like this is fine. Like she's making all the effort or he's making all the effort. And you're just like, yeah, sure. I'll go. Like, and then that person who thinks this is real is like, no, this is real. And then, I mean, this is kind of a whole other topic, which we will talk about another podcast. Then I always think, when people have to question where they're at in their relationship, like, is this my boyfriend? Is this my girlfriend? And it's been like months, like there's a problem. Someone is giving too much here and it could be you.
I know.
Right. So when you have this conversation and like, hey, what are we? And then they're like, oh yeah, we're just having fun. And then that's kind of the breakup right there too. You're like, but I wanted more. And they're like, I don't want more. And you're like, oh my gosh. So so going right back into closure of like, okay, shoot, like, great. I think it's really important to sort of start with like, what has really happened in this relationship and really try to take your heart out of it because your heart is going to absolutely it's going to do everything to make you okay and make you like not the dumb one here. Right?
Well, it's, I mean, we spoke about it in the episode about, whether or not you should go back to an ex and how, we're all so good at thinking back and thinking about the good things, the positive things that happened and how amazing that person was for, a split second or maybe a lot of it, like, it obviously is going to vary. But I think sometimes what you do need to focus on is the negatives. And that might not sound like a very good way to go about your life and go about the process. But I think you just need to focus on the fact that, things weren't right and things weren't really adding up. And it was, whether it was one-sided or somebody, kept on doing certain things or whatever it might be, is just kind of remembering you've come to this point for a reason and not to try and sugarcoat it in any other way, because that unfortunately is what it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a really good podcast to listen to if you guys haven't. It is, should you go back to an ex, there's a lot of stuff we talk about in there. A lot of real life examples from me in there. Well, speaking of that episode, so when you listen to that episode, or if you have, I do reach out to someone I was dating, and I will just give an update of what happened.
Please do. This is the first time I'm hearing this. This is very exciting.
Right. So a little background. We were trying to date each other. We kind of were. It was, he was coming out of a divorce, and, just not great timing. But it was someone I had known for like 10 plus years, and we had always been really good friends. And so it's just not coming together, right? So it both kind of equally mutually fades. And I just think, okay, you know what? He's just like healing from the divorce. It's so new, blah, blah, blah. I'm so special to him. He's told me how special I am. And I'm just going to kind of like keep doing me, and he'll come back. But then I see some pictures that he's like dating someone, and it broke me. I was like, wait, what? And this is what we're talking about, right? Rose-colored glasses, you having a picture or assumption of what's going on. But in my case, I really needed to just stalk an Instagram a little bit more.
Sometimes it's that simple.
It's really, no, I'm a big advocate now in stalking someone's Instagram to get a real picture of what's really going on in their life, instead of the one you're making up in your head because you're too scared to see what's actually going on. Very applicable in your relationship when you're too scared to ask what's going on with us. Where do we stand? Okay, cool. So anyway, here's the update. Almost the day after I sent my text of like, hey, I've never stopped thinking about you. Would you be able to talk? Blah, blah, blah. He is tagged in a gazillion pictures for the next 2 weeks in Italy with this girl in like on the Amalfi Coast. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess this is done. This is over. Oh, it was brutal. And then I just sort of was like, I don't know. I think.
He never got back to you? There was no.
He never texted me. Never text me. He clearly got my text. People have international data plans. All right. We do. Like, that's a thing. But what was awful was that he had blocked his stories from me for like almost a year. And I was like, you've got to be. Yeah. I was like, you want to block your stories from me? Because I was the healthy one. It made me so angry. But then I was like,
mad.
It was crazy. And I was like, this guy is clearly hiding something from me. Probably that either he got back together with his ex, which I thought I really did, or he's dating someone new. But he had no balls to just say back then, almost a year ago, hey, you know what? I've met someone, I'm seeing someone, and that's what's up. Just like give me the respect.
When you saw the picture on Instagram, you thought he'd just started dating someone, right?
I couldn't.
You didn't
really
know it had
tell
been going on for such a long time.
I mean, I have very good girlfriends who stalked really hard for me on all the levels. I know myself. This is why I don't stalk Instagrams or people in general, because I can be really obsessive, and I'm
it can become an unhealthy thing for sure.
Right. And I know this about myself, so I really don't do it. But my girlfriends don't feel the same way as I do, so they do it for me. And then they're like, you should know this is what's going on. And it was so helpful. Like, it was so helpful in getting a very clear picture of what was going on. And for me to be like, you just do not deserve me. Like,
absolutely
if this is how you're going to handle me. And I felt that way for the last year. I was like, he's not treating me the way that I need to be treated. And it was so clear. And that's why I wasn't talking to him too. I was like, you don't deserve me. But the heart wants what the heart wants. So like, in my moment of weakness and a text that I had always wanted to send, I finally sent it, which felt very cathartic. And I, didn't get a response. But then I see all these pictures and like everything processes. And I'm like, I really don't want him thinking that I'm sitting here pining for him now that I've seen all these pictures, especially. And that asshole took me off blocked. And now suddenly he's showing me all of his stories. I'm like, You coward. You were too much of a coward to say that I'm with someone, and you're too much of a coward to say it again. So you unblock me? Like, oh my God. So I didn't want
and not to even reply to your message. Like, I think it would have been a really easy. That's the one thing I don't understand with some people, is that they make the situation so much more complicated than it needs to be. It was a simple reply to your message being like, I really appreciate your honesty and value, who you are and where you're coming from. But you should probably know I have been seeing somebody. I probably should have told you before, but I didn't want to hurt your feelings. And just and that be it. And just be like, I really wish you all the best. Take care of yourself. Done. And you would have been like, great, okay. And it would have ended on a really nice note. Yeah. Okay, you would have been like, okay, well, yeah, you could have told me sooner, but it would have been a very clean end, clean line. But now it's like, although you kind of have your closure because he's obviously not handled it very well, and you're just like, right, okay, I'm done. Yeah. It could have gone so much nicer if he just had the balls to say. And it's just, it is stupid really, because he now just comes off like a horrible person when it doesn't need to be the case. It's just silly. Boys are silly. And sometimes girls. I'm not going to say it's just boys, but sometimes it's girls.
Boys are real dumb though. They're real dumb. They don't put things together too quickly, whereas girls were like very, very complicated like that. Anyway, so I didn't want him to think I was pining. So I was like, naturally I would have just like walked away and been like, I have nothing to say. You don't deserve my words. But I felt that I needed to say something for me. So I just said something along the lines of like, after 10 plus years of friendship, I really deserved the respect of telling me what's going on last year, instead of ghosting me and leading me on and leaving me to put the pieces together of what happened to us. Like I something along the lines of that. And I was just like, you could have just been kinder. But in breakups or in, whatever it is, situationships as this one was, it's just like people are too cowardly. They're too afraid to take responsibility for what they're doing wrong. Yeah. Most of the time they know they're doing something wrong, and then they end up hurting people. And you said so perfectly too in the should you go back to an ex, is that when you are in a relationship that isn't like a formal relationship, like you're committed and it's official, but you're more in like we've been dating for months, I'm not sure what we are, is this a situationship, what is this? Those can hurt even more, because if you don't really get the closure, you're like, what was that? Like, I can't even tell my friends it was an ex-boyfriend, because what the hell was it? It was a relationship, but like, what was it? So yeah, I mean, that is very complicated with closure. And so in my case, I mean, this is one of the only times that I've ever really been like, yeah, dude, like you don't deserve me. Like, and by the way,
good for you. Like, so you should.
It was a brilliant text. It really was.
Yeah.
I was like,
and I think like, that's like one of the things I think, the next kind of steps of closure is to make sure you've said everything that you need to say. Because I think sometimes in this situation, especially I think from the female side, we're so often, painted with the sort of psycho brush. And, if you say how you feel, like, oh God, that girl's, she's not right in the head kind of thing, which is so unfair, because I think, we then end up walking away from something being like, you know what? I'm not going to give him the time of day to let him know that he's hurt me or to let him know that he's got to me. And you walk away and you think, actually, I really wish I'd actually said, even if it's like, I don't know, you've been on a couple of dates with a guy and they just suddenly disappear off the face of the earth. Yeah. And you want to text them and be like, you know what, mate? Like, have some balls and just tell me that you're not interested. I'm a big girl. I'm not going to cry myself to sleep about this because you're not all that good. But you just don't, because you think, oh, well, I just don't want them to think I've, got a screw loose. So I think the one thing with closure is that you need to air your feelings, say how you feel. And then for you can then draw a line under it and you can be like, right, I've said my piece. I'm done with it. I'm at peace with it. I'm good.
Because I think what it is that you want to respect yourself. And if sometimes walking away without any words can be great. And that can be exactly what, you
need
need
to do.
But sometimes if you find yourself months and months and months down the line, you're still thinking about this person, you're still hung up on them, even if you're just still angry at them, which could be the case, which I was just angry for a really long time.
Yeah.
You really do need to say something, because clearly your heart is like, we don't feel very respected in any way right now. So you've got to go stand up for yourself and speak your truth. And, so I send this, by the way, I didn't even send it in a text. I sent it as a DM, which to me is like the lowest of the low. Like it's one thing to communicate with your friends, like via DM, like here's a funny GIF for me, whatever. But when you're like communicating with someone, that's the lowest of the low. And I was like, I want to make sure this is where you stand. This is the level you're at now. I don't even care if I just don't even care. So he also did not respond to that, which is fine. In fact, that's what I wanted. I'm like,
there's no point just doing a whole back and forth, because it's not ever going to go anywhere positive.
Oh my God, no. And the text was beautifully constructed. I wasn't emotional in it. I was just factual, which is kind of how I roll when I'm upset or when I'm trying to solve something. And it just felt so good to send it. And I'm like, you know what? We both know that this was messed up and that I didn't deserve this and that you don't deserve me. Yeah. So very important to speak your truth.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, you can potentially, for people who might not have been through a similar situation, compare it to anything in your life, how much better you feel when you speak about it. So I know when it comes to mental health or whatever, I'm a huge advocate for just, speaking your truth and speaking about how you feel, whether that's to your friends, to your family, to someone on the phone, however you want to do it. And I just think, remember how good you feel getting it off your chest. Yeah. Because I think sometimes these words and these feelings can really pile on your shoulders and just weigh you down. And as soon as you open your mouth and it all comes out, you just feel so light and just so fresh. And it's just just such a good transition. And I think, it's exactly the same when it comes to closure. Air your feelings and you'll suddenly feel so much happier in yourself to then move forward.
The thing that also happens too, which is amazing, is that part of you is still stuck in that moment, that past with that person, even though you're living your life and moving on in a lot of ways. There's an emotional part of your heart that is still stuck there. And so when you do say your truth, or get the closure that you need, whether that's a letter or an email or a text or an actual voice, in-person thing, once you get it, for me, it was oh my gosh, that part of me was almost brought back into the present. I rescued her from that past and suddenly I was completely fully in the present. And it felt so silly that there was part of me that was still kind of holding on or, sort of romanticizing this time. It's really an incredible, it was almost like a slingshot, back into my body.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think as well, when it comes to closure, it's important to know that sometimes in certain situations, you're never going to be 100% over that person. Now, this might be different from different people, but me personally, in my previous relationships, and it might be because they've ended fairly amicably, but I still have, love for those people. And I think when I was getting over them, it was me, what helped was having that understanding that I always will. And that I might have those thoughts, every now and again being I wonder, what if we'd stayed together, or we would have been together this many years. Do you know what I mean? And not in a weird, creepy stalker way, but just you have it's just and it's not, a fantasy or anything like that, but you're just you have love. You're always going to have love for that person. So I think as well, definitely what you said as well, some people, really just need to get full control back and know that, they're not leaving any of themselves behind. But also, no, I think, it's not bad if you do feel like you need to, because it's sometimes something that you'll never really be able to get over, but you just learn to move on and you just, you live with it,
And that's a really huge part of closure too, is that, when we talk about closure with actual death, right? And breakups can feel like a death where you just never get to see that person again or talk to that person. And it really is as if they have died. But in actual death, they really are gone. And I do think that we can, talk to our loved ones and, just mentally just like talk to them or, whatever, verbally if you want to. But it is really something that it's up to you to really find a way to let that go. But I'm so in agreement. Like when you love someone, even if it's over and maybe it didn't even end really well, it's okay to have love for them because
definitely
it's love. And I always say, especially when you're coming out of a breakup, and I did say this in the last episode, but just send them love. If you have overflowing amounts of love to them, just keep sending it to them because that's what you want to do. Yeah. And it's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it. Just don't.
Yeah. I mean, if you're, still sleeping with a hoodie that smells like them or wearing their clothes when you break up, that's obviously where it gets a little bit odd and you want to maybe avoid that. But I think in that kind of sense, it's good to just have, positive vibes.
Right. Positive vibes. In a very spiritual sense, send them love. Like, don't actually just like sit outside their apartment and be like, hi.
No, that's when I think what you said is that you need to like get that part back and make sure you move on. But I think, from a love standpoint, you can still give them what they need.
Right. Because I mean, there's someone that I, broke up with, oh my gosh, so many years ago. But like, I am so happy for him. And I am so happy to like check his Instagram once in a blue moon and be like, oh, look at you, like doing your thing, being awesome. Like it makes me really happy because I did have so much love for him.
Yeah.
And just, it's a lovely feeling. It's not like, oh, there's the in love. It's just an unconditional sort of.
Definitely. And it's a good thing for you personally as well, because who wants to harbor that negativity and that hate? Like it's so unhealthy just for everything around you, like the vibe that you're giving off and just who you are as a person. Like you don't want to emit that into sort of, the ether. You want to be positive and just keep things happy and healthy. And, you don't want to, I just couldn't imagine having hate or negative feelings towards people because there's just the only person it's hurting really is you. And that's it.
Well then. It gets so dusty in my house. It's like,
oh no,
that and the cats, like, and she's like sitting here. She's like, hi. Well, I feel like we have covered closure quite well today.
I think so
anything
too.
That we have missed?
I don't think so. I think with what you just said there about a death. I think it's the sort of the grieving process, I think is very similar to kind of getting closure on a breakup. And that might sound slightly dramatic, but I think it is. Like you're going to go through these phases, which is similar to grieving. And you are grieving in a way. You're grieving the relationship, you're grieving the previous life that you had. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just, be kind to yourself in this situation and just, focus on yourself, keep yourself busy, go out with your friends. And, I think I said as well, like getting over an ex is just give it time. Time is a big healer and I'm, a huge advocate of just giving it time. And, people will handle things in different ways. And it's just important to do what's right for you and what you feel is right. And I think that's really, that's the best thing that you can do for you and the relationship.
And also like, I know there's been people who've said like, oh, it takes about half the time you were with someone to get over them. And that's just bullshit. Like, that's not true.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, and that's also just setting people up for failure as well. Like there's no point putting a time limit on it or what you think it's going to be. It's like everyone gets over things differently. So I think it's important to, although it's nice to hear advice and look online to think, get advice about what you should and shouldn't do. It's, just make sure you're doing what's right for you and not,
Absolutely.
That kind of thing annoys me because it just makes you feel like if you're not over them, you're just like, right, okay, well, I obviously have failed at that. Like maybe I am still in love with them and it just messes with your head and you end up going through the whole thing all over again. So
totally, completely. So don't do that, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Tell people how they can find you.
Yeah, you can find my podcast page, The Good, the Bad and the Ghosted. And there's all episodes on wherever you find yours.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, my dear. I will talk to you soon.
See you soon. Thanks so much.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. Remember, sharing is caring. Make sure to rate the podcast and leave a review. We really rely on this to help get the podcast out there. Also, make sure to watch the video version on YouTube at That Girl the Podcast.